Hi again. So today is the 15th of April 2020, and the subject matter is, here in Australia at least anyway, it's turned from how many cases will we have to where's the curve going to flatten out, and now we've got this dropping effect in cases. So when can we remove the lockdown? Now, something was very telling by Daniel Andrews about a week ago. He mentioned that there was a real possibility of us going to stage 4. We're at stage 3 precautions now. And what that means is that you can leave your house under 4 conditions, and that's things like schools, etc. They're all closed. They weren't going to close. They almost had their hands dragged on that issue about 3 weeks ago. The weekend prior to the schools closing, the PM had come out and said, well, he's going to football on the weekend to see his beloved Dragons. That was on, I think, a Friday night. And then by the Saturday, I think obviously he got a bit of a talking to from some of the medicos that said, no, it's not the best idea, or not the best image to be showing people. Because on the Friday night they were talking about having a closure of gatherings above 500 people, and that would come into effect on the Monday. That would have meant that it was perfectly okay to go and see his football game, but over the weekend that got poo-pooed, and that was brought forward, which meant the football games were pretty much poo-pooed. They shifted to crowdless environments, and they've since shut down altogether. For the rest of us, we're sitting here going, well, how long do we stand still for? What Dan Andrews was talking about last week is he mentioned this stage 4. He didn't define what stage 4 is. I don't believe he actually has an idea of what this is, stage 4. I don't believe they've got a definition of what that would look like. It may be something like it's occurring in European countries where you actually need an affidavit to leave your house, this kind of thing. Much more stricter approach, definitely heading down the police state or the martial law state. For us, that doesn't really make any sense given the infection rate, and the density of population in Australia is not like other countries. It is in certain parts of major cities, for example, and even in the suburbs with smaller cities. So I think his threat was really to introduce this idea of zero. This concept where in the back of their minds, they're really just thinking about, if we keep pressure on the infection, so if the infection rate is going up, this nice curve here, we keep pushing down from it at the top, we get a natural curve, we get a slowing down of the infection rate, and then a decrease, as we're seeing at the moment. It's gone from having our infection rate was like 20% a few weeks ago, which means if we're reporting 20% cases here, that means that probably 2 weeks prior to that point, they were infected. So these things have a lag-on effect. It takes a while for the shutdowns were issued about that same time, about 3 weeks ago now, give or take, and it takes at least 14 days for that to show up in the data. So now it's curving down to what's 2%. We still have new infections happening. I think today was about 45 or something like that. That's terrific, but it's nowhere near zero. I've got a bad feeling that this tailing off period here is going to be much more like this. Sorry, it's a terrible graph. Can't draw for shit, amongst most other things. So we might trickle down towards zero. This might take us another month or two to get to a point where we actually hit this big zero. Yay! Isn't that awesome? Once we get there, we're going to have to stand still for another at least 3 to 4 weeks. And if there's any more new infections during that 3 or 4 weeks, guess what? This cycle rolls over again, and we do it again. What happens when we get to this point? This is the question that we keep asking ourselves. When will they release some of the restrictions that have been placed upon people? When can you safely go visit your parents, for example, or your friends and family? My best guess is that this zero number that's when it's going to happen. There'll be 3 or 4 weeks, and then there'll be this point we'll go, okay, we'll roll back some restrictions, and then we'll wait probably another period of a few weeks, because it'll have to be at least 14 to 21 days before they can see any changes in the infection rate. If they see it going up, guess what? It'll get rolled back. And we're not talking about the second wave of the infection here in Australia. We're talking about the first wave. Our government's already plonked out, $250 billion of bailouts, pretty much. We've got a job seeker fund. We've bumped up the unemployment rate to try and cope with the level of layoffs that were occurring. That's all cool, but that has a finite thing. That's a 6 month. In 6 months, that's gone. And if this keeps rolling towards 6 months, guess what happens then? We are fucked. We are absolutely fucked. You know? The flow-on effect is going to be all those people that lost their jobs, right, can't pay rent. The amnesties for paying rent run out in 6 months' time. All of those banks will start queuing up going, guess what, mate? It's time for you to start paying your mortgage again. And because of the inconvenience to their lenders, you're going to be paying more. They'll absolutely screw you over in that regard. Because I have to. Because it's not you're not lending their money. It's not their money. They go somewhere else and lend it to someone else. And those people want their return. They need that money. So again, the flow-on effect kicks on. Let's say we somehow magically get this thing sorted in 2 months' time, 3 months' time. I don't know. Pick a number, who cares? What I've got a bad feeling about is that we're going to turn into the surveillance state. They'll definitely use number plate recognitions. They'll definitely use any tool they have to monitor your movements around the city. And you can almost see them coming up with, I think there was talk in some European countries about them issuing mobile phone apps. Actually, it might have been in China, it might have been in Wuhan itself. But the phone is acting like it's tracking that 6 degrees of separation. So it says you here, there's other people over there, and if it notices that your phone is near a known infected case, it then tags you as high probability of being infected. Now that has repercussions to you. It means to go shopping or go out, you have to show your phone. It has to be a green status. Green for go. If you're red or whatever, or amber or something, I don't know what. I mean, red is obviously infected, but amber has been exposed to. So they'll use this to track people as they bump around in public spaces, which means everyone going out there and installing these kind of tracking apps, and Big Brother monitoring your movements. And if you don't think it'll happen, I think you're fucking crazy. It'll absolutely happen here, because there's no other way. if we can't get to this magic zero, right, and we can't do this quickly and easily, we keep getting close and it bumps up and bumps up and bumps up, we run out of money. At that point, we let everything just fall off the cliff. Who cares? Then what do? You have to, at some point, say, well, we have to let people resume their lives and take whatever negative reactions that are going to come our way in stride. So if that means losing more Australians or losing more lives and having to give up some civil liberties, being tracked by your phone or having to have much stricter measures about where you can travel to. If you're in one city here and that city is all green, it's all free of infection, then you can't go to a city next to you which is maybe an amber colour or something. The utopian view is if once we hit this magical day of zero infections, that we have a fireworks display and we go, oh, aren't we clever? We've solved this problem. But now, until there's a vaccine or some other secondary treatments that are very effective, we have to have quarantine borders forever. If there's no vaccine, then get used to it, because you can forget seeing your favourite band come in, because they just won't. The more I think about it, the more you realise how far away we are from actually getting this to an end. And that 6-month period too, we're already a month into that. And at this 2% growth, if we had like a nice round 100 infections, we were declining by 2 a day, that's still going to take 50 days to get to a point where there's zero, isn't it? And then you have to spend, at that point, once you get to this zero day, you've got to spend at least 21 to 28 days of zero infections. And if more infections crop up here, this cycle is going to repeat. Another month-long period. So they are right when they say this is going to be the toughest time is actually ahead of us, to make sure that we don't have these small indiscrepancies ruin for the rest of us. Surely what they'll do though is it'll be state by state. The country won't have to endure this forever. If you're in the Northern Territory or something like that, and you do get to a point, this 0 point quickly, and you can lock off your borders effectively and make sure that you're testing people adequately, because we have to test the population. We can't just go, okay, you're free to go, then what? What happens when we have the second wave? We shut down again, we go find another $200 billion to pay people so they can have somewhere to live, because you know what's going to happen. 6 months' time, if we don't get out of this, there's going to be a massive fire sale. If you want to buy a house, kids, guess what? 6 months from now, that's the time to go sniffing. Because all those people who are leveraged to the fucking hilt borrowed more money than they can afford, right? Because they just were told this is a good thing to do. Buy a fucking house, get out there and do those things. Guess what? You might end up fucking here. If your property depreciates in value, and don't think it can't happen, because it does happen all around the world. It was only, 2008, when the property prices in America were in the toilet. You could buy a house for a few $1,000s because no one fucking wanted it. That shouldn't happen here, but you don't know. I mean, people are spending millions of dollars on shit boxes, on shitholes, for what? At some point, if you can't repay that debt, then you are rooted, and your bank's not going to be that friendly to you for that long. You know, crazy. So yeah, I do imagine there being a lot of fire sales. It's unfortunate to think about, but yeah, we'll get to a point where, you know what, you know, these people who they bought big for their first home, rather than go through the process of going through 3 or 4 homes to build that equity and do it slowly. They bought new, they bought a plan, they went and bought a bunch of cool furniture, they got the cool life, everything. They're the working poor, as we call them here in Australia. These are people who are mortgaged to the absolute hilt, and every month they're paying, you know, the vast majority of their income to cover their mortgage. If this goes bad, those people are fucked. There's a lot of people right now talking about not repaying their mortgage if their bank hasn't put theirs into hiatus already. Or paying rent. Landlords can only take that for so long until they're in a position where they're having to sell the property, and I'll sell it from underneath you. Fun. So can we get to zero in 5 months? I don't know. I haven't got a fucking clue. But we're going to find out now, aren't we? Whether we like it or not, we're going to find out. Alright, we'll leave that there. And we'll see how we go with this possible surveillance state. We'll see what happens. Hopefully we don't, but I have a bad feeling about that we might just find ourselves slipping into something we didn't expect. And once they roll it out, you'll never get rid of it. Fun. Alright, bye. Thanks.